Alright, hey everybody. Thank you for tuning in, thank you for liking, thank you for commenting, thank you for subscribing to the channel. There's more Pokemon content, there's more content, more reactions. I'm your host here, you know what I'm saying. Big Zay out in the building. I vlog in real life, you feel me? I do vlog in real life. You should catch some of my shorts about how going to the Pokemon vending machines is a bit of a hassle, and I will do some more tomorrow because I do need to complete. Where is it? Did not bring it up here. Oh, I did. My journey's together set. So let's actually do a thing. If I could get to 3,000 subscribers, I'll be giving away a Journey Together booster box to a subscriber. And I need you to comment down below on my videos, long form, and my shorts, short form. Yeah, that'll be it. I'll give away about the Journey Together. This is a good set. I don't care what nobody says. This is also a reaction channel, so I don't care what anybody say. It's getting hot in here, so take off all your clothes, baby. Say not. But let's get to Trump. And then we're gonna talk about some podcasts too. But yeah, let's get to Trump. Trump is Tariff T. Tariff T. Let's see what this one says. I queued it up.
The luck is on today, baby!
Box GG is the ultimate collectibles experience.
I always say tariffs is the most beautiful word to me in the dictionary.
Tariff.
This is a direct attack.
Donald Trump, who changes his mind between, breakfast 11's his lunch and supper time.
What the heck is going on? Why is Trump hitting his closest allies with tariffs? Why does he no longer care about crashing the stock market? Does this guy actually have a plan? Yes. Believe it or not, I'm here to tell you that yes, as Trump's new Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent recently put it,
President Trump's tariff policies have begun the process of reorienting our international economic relations.
That's right, he says tariffs have begun the process. In other words, his tariff chaos is just the start of a much bigger plan. A plan that aims to upend the entire world trading system that the US itself created. This has really only happened twice before, once in 1944 marking the start of the Bretton Woods system, and then in the early 80s with Reagan and Thatcher marking the beginnings of the neoliberal world order. So here we are today, 2025. Is this the start of a completely new global order? A new US-centered order that will emerge right after the current chaos, in which countries are divided in three groups, or as Scott Bessent calls it,
I think we should make it very clear that there is a green, a yellow, and a red bucket, and we let everyone know where they are.
In these buckets, it will become very clear that some countries get low tariffs, military protection, and maybe even some preferred US dollar access, while others are left to fend for themselves. At least, that's the picture I got from going through all of the speeches and papers by Trump's closest economic advisors that I could find. So, let's get into it. What is this MAGA master plan for a new global order? And is this plan actually feasible, or is it just a pipe dream of a madman and his stooges? To answer these questions, let's start with getting into the MAGA mindset and ask ourselves, what does the Trump team actually want? To answer that question, first a bit about Trump's new economic team. First, we have Scott Bessent, the new Treasury Secretary, an ultra-wealthy hedge fund manager that famously worked with George Soros himself to break the Bank of England in the early 90s, and he used to teach economic history classes at Yale. Then there's Stephen Moran, Trump's new top economic advisor, a Harvard PhD and hedge fund strategist who recently got all of Wall Street talking with his new paper, A User's Guide to Restructuring the Global Trading System. Both men have written and talked extensively about one single mortal threat to the United States: deindustrialization. So of course they were drawn to Donald Trump's campaign with its goal of
Make the United States into a manufacturing powerhouse like it used to be many years ago.
Many years ago, indeed. If we look at this chart, we can see that in the 1950s, the US used to be a manufacturing powerhouse, when manufacturing value added accounted for 28% of output. Today, that number is only 10%. Trump's first trade war did not significantly change that trajectory, though. But why is this such a big problem? America's economy is bigger than ever, right? Why does the Trump team care so much about industry? Two reasons. First, deindustrialization has devastated America's industrial heartland, which overwhelmingly voted Trump in 2024. Second, US industrial power is now far behind that of other comparable powers, especially China, putting it at a massive disadvantage in case of a war, given that historically civilian factories and know-how have been essential for rapid militarization. So, the Trump team thinks a lot about China. What happens if they invade Taiwan? Yes, the US has a stronger fleet for now, but as Vice President J.D. Vance has noted, US deindustrialization has gotten so bad that
one of Beijing's state-owned firms built more commercial ships just last year than all of America has produced since the end of World War II.
So I think in that light, that, yeah, it does make
two things. So if America stopped being a powerhouse, America's only a powerhouse because it won the military, weaponization, and hostile takeovers or proxy wars. America is weak in its investments. Its investment into its people, its investments into its businesses, because it allows for the businesses to run the nation. The nation is ran by capitalism and patriarchy. But capitalism, it runs the culture as well. The culture is not invested in. So the investment of the people is zero. That's why you have people that become terrorists. That's why you have people that do anarchy. Because the country that they live in, told that it's the greatest country in the world, doesn't provide for its people. And then people will be like, oh, we provide Section 8. And we'll like, no, I'm saying it doesn't provide strong foundations. It doesn't have good manufacturing. It doesn't have the strength that it held in the earlier years, because everything has been stripped. It's a skeleton crew. Businesses run a skeleton crew in the United States. They have a fucking 3,000 Indians, 4,000 Vietnamese, 6,000 Taiwanese people running doing their businesses, and then they're wondering like, oh wow, what's gonna happen if so and so? It's like, well, y'all don't invest in the people, because money is every billionaire is absolute in greed, and they will never not be that. There's not a good billionaire on this planet.
Makes sense that the Trump administration wants to re-industrialize the US. But does he really have to slap tariffs on everyone at the same time? And say stuff like this about his closest allies?
Taking our jobs, taking our wealth, taking a lot of things that they've been taking over the years. They've taken so much out of our country, friend and foe, and frankly, friend has been oftentimes much worse than foe.
After all, the US has been the most powerful country on earth for decades. It literally designed the current trading system. So why is it so unhappy about it? To answer that question, we need to go through the entire period of this graph. A brief history of the US-led global order. After all, the deindustrialization of the US is a long historical trend, and it happened under two specific global orders, both made by the US itself. The first is the Bretton Woods system from 1944 to 1973. The second is the neoliberal world order that arguably lasted from Reagan's presidency in the early 80s to Trump's first term in 2016. The periods in between are, in my view, adjustment periods. So, okay, let's start with the Bretton Woods system and why it is crucial to understand Trump's plan today. The Bretton Woods system was established in the 1940s. On the economic side, the rules were laid out in 1944 when the United Nations Monetary and Financial Conference was held in Bretton Woods in the United States. Meanwhile, on the security side, several conferences were signed that ultimately led to the creation of NATO and the US-Japan Security Treaty. Together, I'm going to refer to this all as the Bretton Woods Economic and Security Order. Joining this order for any country other than the United States meant the following three things. 1. You would fix the value of your currency to the US dollar, which itself was tied to gold. 2. You would rely on the US for military protection, potentially even hosting US military bases. And 3. The US would help your industries become competitive against their own by providing Marshall Plan aid and by opening up its own market, while allowing its recovering allies to shield their markets to a certain extent from US companies. Notably, getting back to Besant's green, yellow and red buckets, only allies would receive these benefits. Neutral countries did not get them, but they could sign individual deals, while communist countries were essentially shut out of the Bretton Woods economic order.
Think your taxes are simple? You could file for free with H&R Block. More people qualify for H&R Block free on.
The history of the Bretton Woods system is really crucial because already here it seems like being a green country looks like a super good deal for these countries and not for the US. But I think that is misguided for at least three reasons. First, the US was really wary of creating another world war, and while it gave Europe and Japan an advantage in market access, in return it got really good allies that it really needed in its global fight against communism. Second, US industries also needed export markets themselves. By making its allies rich, the US allowed itself to get richer as well. Finally, this system really cemented the role of the US dollar.
The only thing is that the US didn't invest into its own country. The US does not invest into its own country. It invests into capitalism, not into the people.
As the global reserve currency. Issuing the world's reserve currency came with what French Finance Minister Valéry Giscard d'Estaing called an exorbitant privilege. This privilege meant that because the demand for US dollars as a reserve currency was so great, it allowed the US to spend much more internationally than it earned without facing a currency crisis. However, arguably, giving Japan and Europe key market access did already contribute a little bit to deindustrialization. However, as Stephen Moran writes in his paper, this system inevitably led to a dilemma for the US, the so-called Triffin dilemma. You see, as the global economy grew, the need for dollars increased, but the quantity of gold was relatively stable. So to keep the global economy growing, the US either needed to choose to keep creating more dollars, making the gold standard less and less credible, or to keep the gold standard and kill global economic growth by stopping the creation of new dollars that the world needed. This ultimately led to the following iconic announcement by President Nixon in 1971.
I have directed Secretary Connally to suspend temporarily the convertibility of the dollar into gold or other reserve assets,
which was then followed by a period of global economic turmoil, after which the neoliberal world order was ushered in by Ronald Reagan and Margaret Thatcher. This neoliberal world order was characterized by, number 1, lower tariffs, number 2, lower barriers on investment around the world, number 3, flexible exchange rates, and number 4, the US guaranteeing security for everyone that at least played somewhat nice with the United States. In line with its free market principles, the neoliberal order was far less structured than the Bretton Woods order. There was no formal agreement now in which countries promised to use US dollars. They just did so because it was the most convenient and most reliable currency out there. However, in this system, any non-US nation had a very strong incentive to hoard US dollars by making it easy to export to the US and making it harder to import from the US. Notably, despite praising the virtues of free trade, the World Trade Organization did actually allow developing nations to have higher tariffs against the US than the other way around, precisely because the US hoped that by making the world richer, it would become friendlier just as has happened before with Germany and Japan. Compared to Bretton Woods, the number of green countries, so to say, got much bigger in the neoliberal order. As long as you were willing to play by the rules of the World Trade Organization, you got good access to the massive US consumer market, the US dollar banking system, and as a bonus, US Navy protection of global shipping. That sure sounds like a pretty good deal. But of course, the US again got something very, very big in return for it. With the fixed exchange rates of Bretton Woods gone, Stephen Miran writes that reserve demand for American assets pushed up the dollar, leading it to levels far in excess of what would balance international trade over the long run. So, thanks to flexible exchange rates, the US's exorbitant privilege arguably became even stronger. A strong dollar meant that the US could keep its massive military all over the world, despite becoming a far smaller economy relative to the rest of the world and relative to its dominance in the 50s. On top of that, the strong dollar made Americans in general much richer than they would otherwise have been. However, on the flip side, it did make manufacturing in the US much more expensive, causing stable manufacturing jobs to leave the country, especially when China joined the World Trade Organization in 2001 in something that became known as the China shock. Meanwhile, a strong dollar mostly helped those Americans that already had a lot of dollars, thereby making inequality worse. Then, in 2016, increased inequality and a devastated industrial heartland helped to elect Donald Trump, who started his first trade war in 2016. In hindsight, I believe this already marked the end of the neoliberal world order because it ended the very neoliberal idea that free.
I'm confused as how it's neoliberal. Let's actually break that down real quick. What is neoliberal? Because to my understanding, people hate Ronald Reagan. Political approach that favors free market capitalism, deregulation, and reduction in government spending. So that's what Donald Trump's on. Alright.
Coffee or their app's digital weekly edition, you'll always stay on top of the latest global developments, no matter where you are. So don't miss out. Click the link in the description below or in the top.
Alright, let's see what Midas test says over. Trump just broke the stock market. Go from there. Let's hear what Bernie Sanders has to say, actually.
Thanks very much for joining me. Tonight we're going to do a bad news, good news routine. So stay with me. We start off with the bad news, which is pretty bad, but we are going to get to a happier ending. Let me begin by just telling you what you already know. And that is that under Donald Trump, this country is hurtling rapidly toward oligarchy, toward authoritarianism, toward kleptocracy, and toward more and more income and wealth inequality. That is what is happening. You'll all remember that Abraham Lincoln talked about a government of the people, by the people, and for the people. I think it is very clear that today we have a government of the billionaire class, by the billionaire class, and for the billionaire class. Elon Musk contributed $277 million to get Donald Trump elected president, and he was rewarded with the most important position in government. In other words, he put out the money and he got what he paid for. Trump also nominated 13 other billionaires to head various government agencies. So almost all the guys who are running the government are billionaires. For many years, as I think you know, I have been talking about how a country is moving toward an oligarchic form of society. And I know that people had their doubts. What is Bernie talking about? Well, not anymore. People now see what's going on right in front of them. No secrets about it. They're seeing the billionaire class running our government right now. But it's not just oligarchy and a government of the very rich that I'm concerned about. It is a very rapid movement toward authoritarianism. Virtually every day, Trump is usurping the powers of Congress. He is ending programs that Congress appropriated, and he's getting rid of agencies that he has no power to get rid of. Further, he has sued major media outlets like ABC, CBS, Meta, and the Des Moines Register for stories and actions that he didn't like. And now his FCC is investigating PBS and NPR. And he's threatening to withhold federal funding for these vitally important media outlets. This is clearly a massive attack on the First Amendment and freedom of expression. He doesn't like what some media are saying, and he is intimidating them. The message is clear. Hey, I'm the boss. Don't you dare criticize me. But it's not just Congress and the media that he's going after. He's also waging a massive attack against the judicial system. Unbelievably, he is actually trying to impeach judges who render decisions that he doesn't like. Think about it. Very few people who are watching this discussion tonight thought that the Supreme Court's decision on Citizens United or Roe v. Wade were good decisions. In fact, in my view, they were disastrous decisions. But we're kind of old-fashioned. We believe in the rule of law. That's what happened. Presidents appointed those people to the Supreme Court. We didn't go around saying, hey, you got to impeach Chief Justice Roberts and the other members. Terrible decision. That's not the way the American Constitution works. And that's what we believe. We actually believe in the Constitution. But it's not just Congress or the media.
That poses a good question. So what if a person doesn't believe in that? What if they choose the direct opposite of that path? Do the two paths collide, or is one stronger than the other? That's a good question.
Or the judiciary that Trump is going after. He's now waging a vitriolic attack against major universities that are teaching courses or allowing activities he doesn't like. For years, we have heard conservatives talk about decentralized government, getting the government off the backs of the people. We've heard about education being a local issue. And now we have a president who is telling Harvard, Columbia, Princeton, and others what they can or cannot do. And in an absolutely unconstitutional and frightening way, federal agents have grabbed foreign students, thrown them into unmarked cars, and taken them to detention facilities. And what is their crime? What have they done that deserves that kind of treatment? Well, in at least one case, a woman wrote an article critical of Israel. In another case, somebody attended a demonstration. Do you really grab people off of the street, throw them in unmarked cars, take them to detention centers because they expressed a political point of view? And unbelievably, he is now going after law firms that oppose them, giant law firms. Can you imagine a president threatening a law firm because they represented a client or did something that you don't like? And Trump has also decided that he needs to lead the culture war in America. He has made himself chairman of the board of the Kennedy Center. So if you add all of these activities up, and I'm just talking about a small part of what he has done, it makes one thing very, very clear. Trump has very little respect for the Constitution of the United States and for the rule of law. He wants more and more power for himself and his fellow billionaires. He wants to lead an authoritarian nation. And to make a bad situation even worse, Trump and Musk are rapidly trying to dismember and destroy federal agencies that serve working families and the poor. Musk has laid off thousands of workers at the Social Security Administration, which will make it harder for the elderly and the disabled to get the benefits that they paid for. It's a massive attack against Social Security. Trump and Musk have also decided to lay off some 83,000 employees at the Veterans Administration, which will mean that the men and women who put their lives on the line to defend our country, our veterans, will see a deterioration in the health care they receive at the VA and the timeliness of the benefits that they earned. And then on top of all of that, Trump and his Republican colleagues are now working on a huge reconciliation bill, which will make massive cuts to Medicaid, education, nutrition, etc. To do what? Why are they making these cuts? In order to give over $1 trillion in tax breaks to the 1%. So that's where we are. That is the bad news. And all in all, it is a pretty dismal situation. So now, let me give you some good news, some very good news. And that is, over the last month, I and my House colleague, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, have been traveling the country in what I've called a fighting oligarchy tour. I've been to Nebraska, Iowa, Wisconsin, Michigan, Nevada, Colorado, and Arizona, and the turnouts have been extraordinary. In Denver, we had more than 34,000 people turn out, the largest rally I have ever been a part of. And what I have learned from all of these rallies and meeting thousands and thousands of people is that the people of our country are sick and tired of Trumpism. They are tired of oligarchy. They are tired of authoritarianism, and they are prepared to fight back. And I should tell you, just to mention, I'm going to be in out west next week. In a week and a half or so, we're going to go to California and other western states. And we are going to continue to rally the American people to stand up to Trumpism and his contempt for American democracy. And let me give you another very...
You know, it's going to be crazy when Trump starts killing people, like blatantly. That's going to be crazy and fuck everybody that voted for him. But that's going to be crazy. Also, he's right. We're in hot water.
Very good piece of good news, and that is on Tuesday night, Susan Crawford took on Elon Musk and the $25 million that he spent to win a seat on the Wisconsin Supreme Court. And I want you all to remember that just 5 months ago, Trump won a narrow victory in Wisconsin. And just the other day, Ms. Crawford won a strong victory. She won by 10 points. Pretty good victory in a state that Trump had won just 5 months before. Also on Tuesday night, in 2 congressional districts in Florida, where Trump had won by 30 points, Democratic candidates, while losing, cut that margin in half. Pretty good. So, where do we go from here? I think the answer is quite obvious. We have got to educate, we've got to organize, we've got to fight back effectively with discipline and intelligence. And if we do that, in my view, we're going to win this thing. And right now, I should tell you, we are not only doing rallies around the country, we are also hiring organizers at the grassroots level to help us build the kind of grassroots infrastructure that we need if we're going to be successful. And let me just mention to you that just a few hours ago, I was on the phone with our friends in the 1st District of Iowa. I had been to Iowa City last month, and we got a whole lot of folks coming out. We got names, we got emails, we called them up, and we had tonight, just a few hours ago, over 500 people in the 1st District of Iowa on the telephone. And almost all of them signed up to get to work, to help us organize, to knock on doors, to hold meetings, etc. And we are going to have organizers all over this country, especially in districts where Republican members of Congress won by slim majorities. And we're going to make sure that all of the people in those districts that were won by Republicans with small margins, they know loudly and clearly, they're going to hear from their constituents, that they must not vote to give huge tax breaks to billionaires by cutting Medicaid and other programs that working families desperately need. So yes, let me be very honest with you. The oligarchs are enormously powerful. No ifs, buts, and maybes. They have endless amounts of money. They control our economy. They own much of the media, and they have enormous influence over our political system. But from the bottom of my heart,
my bad to cut out Bernie, but the reason why rich people have such powerful political influences is because other people that get into political positions typically or sometimes aren't well off. So they sell their ass. They sell their ass for the low. Butthole and all. Just need that.
I am convinced that if we are smart and if we're well organized, they can be defeated. If we stand together and not let them divide us up by the color of our skin or where we were born or our religion or our sexual orientation, if we bring our people together around an agenda that works for the many and not just the few, there is nothing in the world that can stop us. We can win. We will win. So let us go forward together. Let's build that movement that we desperately need. Let's defeat Trumpism. Thank you all very much.
All right, Big Burn Dog. Okay. Let's look at these rallies that's been happening.
Good evening. I'm John Yang. Across the country and around the world today, tens of thousands of people turned out for what organizers say has been the biggest single day of protest against President Trump and his second-term policies and actions. In this country, more than 1,000 rallies were planned in small towns and major cities from coast to coast. Ali Rogan begins our coverage.
In Washington, crowds descended on the National Mall, calling for lawmakers to rein in President Trump.
He's right now destroying our economy. He's taken away all of our allies. We're a pariah in the world. And Congress sits back and does nothing.
The mass protest, dubbed the Hands-Off National Day of Action, was organized by advocacy groups that oppose the president's policies during his first term. Protesters railed against Mr. Trump's recent moves to lay off scores of federal workers, revoke protections for immigrants, and implement sweeping tariffs. But for Democratic leaders, the president's threat to democracy took center stage.
Our founders wrote a constitution that does not begin with "we the dictators." The preamble says, "We the people."
The movement spread far beyond the nation's capital. From the sidewalks of South Bend to downtown Boston and New York City, demonstrators took to the streets in protests both big and small to oppose President Trump's agenda. That resistance echoed around the globe. In Germany, England, and Portugal, protesters flocked to public squares to show support and solidarity with Americans.
Freedom is at stake in the United States and for the whole world with what Donald Trump is doing. And we need to stand up.
For PBS News Weekend, I'm Ali Rogan.
These protests cap a tumultuous week. Overnight, President Trump's 10% global tariffs went into effect, and in anticipation, stocks lost trillions of dollars in market value in just 2 days. Beverly Gage is a professor of history and American studies at Yale University. Beverly, is there any precedent or even an analogous events to what we've seen in the past few days?
Well, we've certainly had tariffs before in American history. No, not on this scale and not for a while, but I cannot think of another moment when it seemed like the White House and the president had deliberately tanked the stock market and told everyone, hey, no worries, it's going to be okay.
You say there have been tariffs in history. What has history taught us about tariffs?
Tariffs were a big part of the way the federal government got its money in the late 19th and into the early 20th century. We didn't have an income tax, and this was a huge source of federal revenue. And we sort of did away with them because they were seen to create instabilities, to create these wild cycles of boom and bust that were so characteristic of that period. And then also to really be a source of political corruption and favoritism. And a century ago, Americans decided that really wasn't the way they wanted to run their country, but it looks like we're heading back to that now.
In recent years, we've seen presidents trying to globalize the economy, trying to make the United States part of a global economy. And now the president seems to be fencing off the American economy from the rest of the world. What do you make of that?
I think that's a really important distinction. If we go back to the 19th century and to the Gilded Age, which seems to be a period that Trump and his allies are thinking a lot about, looking back to, it was a very different story because you hadn't had a whole century of these ties across the continent, across the globe, and this kind of global business world that now is really being dismantled in many ways.
Taking a broader look at the administration and what's happened so far, we've seen President Trump trying to reshape the federal government through DOGE, trying to reshape relations with longtime allies and with trading partners and with the developing world. And we're not even at the 100-day mark. Can you think of a time or a president who's hit the ground running so hard and so fast?
I think you can look at something like Franklin Roosevelt's first 100 days, which is where really we get this idea of the first 100 days as a critical period. Lots of things happened, lots of things changed, and they were pretty fundamental. Changes in the political economy. Americans were able to start drinking again because he ended prohibition. But that moment, I think, is different from this one because people understood Roosevelt to be addressing really a cataclysmic crisis. At home, the Great Depression, abroad, the rise of fascism. And now it seems like the crisis is sort of coming from the White House more than anything else.
Can the president keep up this pace of activity? And
key words is fascism, people. We're heading straight for it. As a black person, internally, I am terrified. Outwardly, I'm excited and giddy because it's going to show that not just because of the votes, but the numerous faces of racism, fascism, dictatorship, and oligarch, and how people fall in line because they're ignorant, stupid, waste of fucking space.
And also, can the body politic keep up with this pace?
It has been, I think, really overwhelming for lots of people, myself included. And as you say, it's still pretty early on. So we might think that some of this will slow down as the courts come in, maybe as Congress begins to try to play a bigger role in all of this. But, I think the Trump administration has been very smart at kind of creating narratives, controlling the news cycle, rolling things out piece by piece. They didn't just come out and say, we're going to cut 10% or 50% of all government agencies, or all universities are going to have to do that. They're making it very personal and they're doing it bit by bit. And it's possible that that could go on for quite a long time.
Is this an inflection point in terms of the United States' role in the global world order and the relationship to the global world order, or is that taking it too far?
I do think that it's an inflection point, not because we know all of the consequences yet, not because it's a done deal or nothing's going to happen. We're seeing waves of protest, lots of pushback starting. So we're still very early on. But I think what's happened in a pretty fundamental way is that a lot of certainties have been upended. Certainty that if you are a scientist, you're going to be able to think about a lifetime career in the United States and think about sources of funding. Same thing for federal workers. And I think that you can take that into the global scale as well. Diplomatic relations, business expectations, all of these have been pretty profoundly disrupted. And we might go back, we might change policies, but the fact that people can't be really secure anymore about what the fundamental assumptions and structures are through which to plan for the long term, I think that's not something that we're going to go back from so easily.
Beverly Gage of Yale University, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Let's see what Brian.
You're watching The Legal Breakdown.
Oh Lord, it starts so fast. But shout out to Brian Tyler. People hate him, especially super conservatives. It's ruining economy on purpose. State of
Glenn, all eyes are on this feud that has erupted between the Trump administration and a federal judge. The judge ordered that a wrongly deported migrant be returned to the U.S. by April 7th at 11:59 p.m. The DOJ, Trump's Department of Justice, requested a stay, meaning to block this order from being carried out. The judge now responded to this request by the DOJ. Can you explain what just happened?
Yeah, Brian, the judge reaffirmed that there is absolutely no lawful basis for this man, Mr. Garcia, to be in El Salvador because he had a court order prohibiting the United States from deporting him to El Salvador. He has no reason to be in a prison in El Salvador, and there is absolutely no reason why the Trump administration cannot bring him back pronto. So she reaffirmed her order. She said, no. There will be no stay. There will be no pause. There will be no reconsideration of my ruling. You will return Mr. Garcia to the United States by 11:59 p.m. on Monday, April 7th. And she said something else. She emphasized in her 22-page order that Mr. Garcia's detention in El Salvador is, quote, wholly lawless. When I read that, Brian, I thought, that would probably make an appropriate hashtag to describe the Trump administration more broadly. Hashtag wholly lawless. So that is where things stands. But there were a couple of other interesting developments in this 22-page opinion that actually have relatively little to do with what's going on in court, but a whole lot to do with what's going on between the walls at the Department of Justice.
Glenn, I want to dig into what happens now, what the Trump administration's recourse is here. So obviously, one step that they could take is just comply with the judge's order. Another step they can take is to ignore the judge's order. And a third step is to seek some type of remedy at an appeals court. Can you explain what their options are?
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. And I can tell you the most likely option is they're probably preparing their appeal right now to the Federal Circuit Court of Appeals that sits atop the Maryland Federal District Court. So I have a feeling probably either late Sunday night, early Monday morning, you're going to see an emergency appeal filed asking the appeals court to stay or pause Judge Chines's order that he must be returned by Monday just shy of midnight. They could also defy the order, but I don't think they'll do that. I think they'll file the appeal. Or, of course, they could comply with the order, which would involve nothing more than sending a plane down there, asking the El Salvadoran authorities to give Mr. Garcia back. And, Brian, they are detaining him for us at our request and at our expense. So the judge, pretty much laughed at a court the notion that the federal government doesn't have the ability. It's, quote, impossible for them to get him back. It's clearly not. But I think you're right. I think an emergency appeal, is most likely what we're going to see next.
If we see an emergency appeal, does that mean that the appeals court has to...
Yeah, Trump is literally trying to build a dictatorship, authoritative dictatorship, and people really don't care. That's how you know American people are so progressed.
Respond before 11:59 p.m. because if they don't do anything, if they opt not to comply, but they have the appeal pending, we're kind of in this weird limbo where the prevailing order is still the one that was set forth by the district court.
Yeah, they don't have to, but I will tell you, in the overwhelming majority of emergency appeals, the appeals court, sort of as a matter of respect to the lower court and to the parties, they will offer some kind of a reply. The reply may very well be, we're not taking this matter up expeditiously, and the lower court ruling will remain in effect. Sometimes they will say, you know what, we will issue what's called an administrative stay, which is a nice way to say, listen, we don't believe the party seeking this appeal is necessarily right, but we're going to just freeze things, albeit fleetingly, maybe for a couple of days or a week while we resolve the legal issue. Usually they will respond because they don't like to just be radio silent and let the parties in the lower court kind of struggle to figure out what to do next.
And then, Glenn, we've spoken about this in previous episodes, but I think it's worth re-upping here. What happens in the event that the Trump administration simply opts not to comply? Even if the appeals court says, nope, we're not going to touch this thing, the lower court, the ruling is valid, there's no reason for us to change this ruling or step in here. We're not going to approve your request for a stay, and you have to return Mr. Garcia by 11:59 p.m. on April 7th.
Yeah, what happens is Judge Sheenis almost certainly moves toward contempt proceedings to try to force the administration to comply. And if they continue to refuse, she can consider confining, jailing, holding in contempt after the officials receive their due process, their notice and opportunity to be heard on the issue, which is their, Fifth Amendment due process constitutional right, the very right they're depriving these immigrants by summarily shipping them down to an El Salvador prison. She will almost certainly move in the direction of contempt with the hope that maybe it will coerce the administration to come into compliance with her order.
Glenn, what kind of enforcement mechanism is there in the courts to try and get the executive branch to do its bidding, to do whatever its rulings are? I mean, who is the muscle behind the judicial branch? Because if the courts are telling the executive branch to do something, presumably you'd need some type of law enforcement authority to be able to do that. And aren't the law enforcement authorities themselves under the purview of the executive branch?
Yeah, we've been talking about this quite a bit. First of all, the muscle is the Constitution. The muscle is that we have co-equal branches of government, and one is constitutionally obligated to respect the lawful authority of the others. That's the actual muscle.
Right. That muscle has been atrophying lately, though.
Yeah, that muscle has not been to the gym in a very long time with Trump in power. I'll give you that much, Brian. But so if you want to talk about boots on the ground law enforcement, muscle and power and might, it is the United States Marshal Service, and they are the ones who are lawfully obligated. For anybody scoring at home, they can look at the federal code, Title 28, Section 566C, Charlie, and they will see that the federal law provides that the U.S. Marshals shall, that's mandatory, enforce federal court orders and shall, acquire any resources they need to do so. People will say, yeah, but the marshals are part of the Department of Justice, and the Department of Justice is part of the executive branch under the control of a criminal president, Donald Trump, all of which is true. But that does not negate the lawful duty of the marshals to execute, to enforce those court orders. And it's anybody's guess as to how this constitutional conflict and, frankly, true constitutional crisis, if the executive branch is hell-bent on defying judicial branch orders, how it plays out.
Right. I would push back and say, yes, the Constitution requires that the marshals enforce whatever the court rulings are, but the Constitution is also the heart of all of these matters, which is that what Trump is doing is defying the Constitution. He's defying the law. And so if he's that willing to defy the Constitution and federal law and federal judge rulings, then why would he suddenly opt to...
Trump is telling everyone for legislative and for judicial law This is executive, baby. And executives have all say so. Fuck all y'all. This is, I don't know. White supremacy is a drug that just, if I was giving it, I'd probably be crazy too. This is what it is.
To respect the jurisdiction or the powers of the marshals.
Well, Brian, it will come down to if the good men and women of the Marshal Service, of the Department of Justice, of the FBI, and ultimately of the military are willing to abide by their oath to support and defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign, and most importantly, in our present circumstances, domestic, then our government holds. But if everybody lays down and, abides by whatever a lawless president or a lawless commander-in-chief, in the case of the military services, if they all lay down, then there is no hope. Then our republic is at an end. Our Constitution, loses. We might as well tear it up and throw it out. I just don't think that is necessarily where we will end up. I know Donald Trump thinks, and now Pam Bondi, his attorney general, thinks that they can fire their way through all of the ethical people in the Marshal Service and the FBI and the Department of Justice. And we just saw an instance of that because the very attorney, the DOJ attorney, Brian, who went into court in the Garcia case, and he made representations, statements, arguments to the judge that were honest, ethical, accurate, and truthful, including telling the judge, I don't have information or evidence for you about why Mr. Garcia is being detained at this terrorist prison in El Salvador. I haven't been provided that information, and I'm sorry, but I can't answer your question. You know what happened to that DOJ lawyer, Brian? Well, just today, he was put on immediate administrative leave, and according to Attorney General Pam Bondi, he is, quote, no longer working with the department. I don't know if that means he's been fired from the Department of Justice. And not only did Mr. Ravini, the attorney who was in court arguing this matter, get put on administrative leave, his supervisor got put on immediate administrative leave as well. They think they can fire their way through all of the honest, ethical public servants. Brian, they can't. Take it from somebody who was inside the federal government for 30 years. They can't. This is not sustainable. This will end up imploding in the long run. And, I think the republic will hold, and I think the good men and women of the federal government will stand up, will refuse to do the unlawful bidding of Donald Trump, Pam Bondi, and the rest of Trump's, lapdogs, flunkies, and sycophants in the executive branch. And I think at the end of the day, it is Trump who will implode, not our Constitution.
Do you have any worry that by virtue of Pam Bondi and the DOJ leadership firing these prosecutors or attorneys who dare make ethical, honest representations in court, that they're just going to get replaced by people who are more in the mold of Bondi, Beauvais, and Trump?
They can bring in a pack of liars to go into court and just say whatever Donald Trump wants them to say.
But that's going to degrade the quality of attorney that they have representing the DOJ then, right?
Exactly. And frankly, it's not even representing the DOJ. It's representing the American people.
Yeah.
It was my job as a federal prosecutor to represent the interests of the American people, not any of the presidents under whom I served. And here's what Pam Bondi just wrote to all of the employees at the Department of Justice after she directed that these two DOJ lawyers be put on immediate administrative leave for, having the gall to basically make truthful, accurate representations in connection with the Garcia case. AG Bondi sent out this missive. At my direction, every Department of Justice attorney is required to zealously advocate on behalf of the United States. Any attorney who fails to abide by this direction will face consequences. Brian, I may not know everything about leadership or supervision, but what I do know, having supervised lots of attorneys, both as an Army JAG supervising other Army attorneys and at the Department of Justice, supervising dozens and dozens and dozens of federal homicide prosecutors, the one thing I know about leadership is that there are three important rules for good leaders, and they are support your people, and support your people. Pam Bondi is doing the exact opposite. She's punishing her people. She's turning on her people. She's stabbing her people in the back for going into court and making the best, honest, ethical, accurate representations to a judge they can make. Do you think they're going to find a lot of folks after this who are ready to rush into court and do Donald Trump's bidding? Are you flipping kidding me? So this is not sustainable, and our viewers should hold fast to the notion that this is not going to bring our democracy down. The idiots, the imbeciles, and the incompetents like Pam Bondi and the other folks that Donald Trump has populated his executive branch with.
All right, well, this case is obviously moving very quickly. So if for anybody watching, you want to continue to follow along, especially as we very quickly approach the April 7th deadline, please make sure to subscribe. I'll put the links to both of our channels right here on this screen. Glenn is fast approaching 1 million subscribers, so especially if you're not yet subscribed to his channel yet, please hit the subscribe button. I'm Brian Tyler Cohen.
And I'm Glenn Kirshner.
You're watching The Legal Breakdown.
Mr. President, the Trump administration is corrupt. It is easily the single most corrupt and lawless administration in American history. And it would be exceedingly difficult to debate that simple proposition, because notwithstanding all of the whataboutism we occasionally hear, there is really no denying it. The self-dealing by unelected billionaires like Elon Musk, the presidential meme coins, the quid pro quos, the dismissal of corruption cases in exchange for help on the president's policy agenda, the dismissal of national security personnel, not on the basis of national security, but on the word of right-wing cranks, the deportation of someone to a maximum security prison in another country on the basis of a clerical error, the mass illegal firings, the reckless use of commercial apps for classified information, the scorning of court orders, the phony math to hide the deficit-exploding impact of tax cuts for billionaires, the attacks on Social Security, calling it a Ponzi scheme, when people are making the attacks, those that are making the attacks are the con men who want to raid the hard-earned retirement funds belonging to our nation's seniors and veterans. The swamp is full, it is overflowing, and Donald Trump is standing right in the middle of it, up to his ears in the filth. And it is plainly obvious to anyone who is watching that the president simply doesn't care about anyone but himself. Not you, not your families, certainly not the American people. He is in it for himself. While your retirement savings are being wiped out, he's playing the back nine at his country club. Oh, caddy, would you hand me a number 6? Now the Trump administration's abundant corruption doesn't happen in a vacuum. His corrupt self-dealing doesn't just boost his own bottom line and that of his wealthy donors. It hurts everyday Americans. It hurts Californians. It hurts all of us.
I mean, the kids in my back. Shit level a little low. Anyways, I went to the grocery store. Shit, it cost $30, which was a lot. Now it costs $45, almost $50, which is crazy. He said we don't hurt for a little bit. He don't give a fuck.
So let me give you some examples. Days before Donald Trump was sworn in, he took one of the most obviously corrupt actions of his political career. And that's saying quite a lot. The president took to Twitter to announce that he was launching his own cryptocurrency, a meme coin. He would maintain a vast ownership of the stock in it, but anyone in the world could buy in. From a Chinese national under indictment in the US to any sultan in the Middle East looking to buy influence, and predictably, the meme coin just skyrocketed. On paper, he appears to have made billions on it. It's possible he made more in one day from this joke cryptocurrency than he had made in his entire life up to that point. You might recall a press conference he had when a reporter asked him at the beginning of his presidency, are you going to continue to traffic in this coin and this currency that's making you a lot of money? And the president's question to him was, well, how much is it making me? And when the reporter said, well, it's making you a lot, the president was delighted. Turned to, presumably off camera, Elon Musk or one of the billionaires and said, well, that may not be much to these guys. And there was great laughter to be had. The corruption is out in the open. And the thing about this new currency is that it's a message to anyone who wants to curry favor with the president. Whether it's foreign governments or oligarchs or wealthy Wall Street billionaires, it gives them a chance to literally buy Donald Trump's favor, directly, corruptly, and unmistakably. Now, who does that ultimately hurt? Short answer is everyone else. So maybe a billionaire is buying a bigger tax break, but that means hardworking Americans are going to have to pay for it. Or maybe it's someone under indictment for fraud who can now get their case dismissed by Donald Trump's DOJ for the right price in meme coin. That hurts every American because it just invites all kinds of further corruption. Now the president's kids are in the crypto business, and there are even more opportunities for graft. In other parts of the world where there are long traditions of such corruption, they would be called princelings. There's a name for them. They're called princelings. Well, congratulations, America. We now have our own princelings, and they are called Eric and Don Jr. Now, as it turns out, it's not just by buying Trump meme coin or the kids' crypto investments that may help get the Justice Department to drop your case or get the Justice Department to go after your enemies. Since Donald Trump's first day in office, he has methodically and meticulously purged the Department of Justice of anyone who is not blindly loyal to him. Not loyal to the rule of law, mind you, not loyal to their oath, but loyal to the person of Donald Trump. That is and will be the only standard in this department. It is not a coincidence that the top 3 lawyers running the Justice Department, including Attorney General Pam Bondi, are all former Trump criminal defense lawyers. Their client was and always will be the multiply indicted and convicted felon who occupies the Oval Office. So how does this hurt everyday Americans? Well, it does so in a few ways. First, it means that the department's resources will be focused on all the wrong things. The DOJ should be focused on keeping Americans safe. It should be focused on cracking down on violent criminals and addressing the fentanyl crisis. It should be hunting down fraudsters who scam Americans. But instead, they're focused on retribution, on going after Trump's enemies, on helping those who were loyal to him, and wasting countless hours and resources in the process. But also, Trump is using the DOJ now to protect his friends and allies. You don't have to look any further than the case in New York. The mayor of New York, Eric Adams, indicted on serious corruption charges. A mayor who then, seeing the writing on the wall, pursues a kind of quid pro quo with the president. He goes down to Mar-a-Lago, and the quid pro quo eventually becomes as plain as day. It is out in the open. The president's own border czar does a joint interview sitting next to the mayor on Fox and Friends on their couch to lay out the stark quid pro quo in exquisite detail. All that was left unsaid by Trump's border czar were the words, "or else." The mayor would get his case dismissed, and in exchange, he would pursue the president's policy agenda when it comes to immigration. If the mayor was guilty of serious corruption, of bribery, of providing political favors to foreign nations in exchange for lavish gifts, and even the Trump DOJ doesn't deny the evidence against him, that just doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter, not if he is a political ally of the president. So who does that hurt? Well, it hurts New Yorkers. It invites more corruption in the city of New York. But this trend, of course, hurts everyone. A big corporation screwing over consumers can seemingly prevent investigation or prosecution now by kissing the ring. Just takes a trip to Mar-a-Lago. A corrupt politician can continue to leverage government resources for their own gain, knowing that they may never be held accountable for their actions. You can even storm this building, and they did. You can storm right into this chamber, and they did. You can trample American democracy. You can beat police officers in the name of this president, and not only will your prosecution be dropped, but you will be pardoned and celebrated. And beyond that, the public...
When that happened, the January 6th shit happened, I thought cops would be outraged across the nation, but then I realized white supremacy and ignorant poor white people go so hand in hand, and the rich whites make the poor whites so stupid and so ignorant and so dumb that they be like, oh, I should be mad at that, but they're making us gay. Like, damn. They're taking their jobs. You wasn't gonna work in that construction, Bob Dylan. They're letting the blacks run around like they're free monkeys. And like, gotcha. I forgot that racism and white supremacy trumped that Blue Lives Matter shit. No cop was mad about that. Like, oh, they beating up cops, they hurting cops, and woo woo. They don't care. They don't care at all. White supremacy and it's just delusional ideologies trump all that shit.
Servants who prosecuted you will be removed, replaced, or demoted. They will be purged. By using the Justice Department as a shield to protect his friends and a sword to go after his enemies, it is the American people who will lose. Now, just down the street from the DOJ, at the Food and Drug Administration, there is something less talked about, but also quite sinister going on. Elon Musk and his many companies owns one, among his many companies, owns one called Neuralink. Now, this is a company that is aiming essentially to implant computers into people's brains. Now, while I am not personally one to want a Elon-sponsored device shoved into my cerebral cortex, I do believe in responsible innovation, and I even celebrate it. But unfortunately for responsible innovation, within weeks of entering office, Elon and Doge had fired essentially the entire team at the FDA's Office of Neurological and Physical Medicine Devices. You guessed it, the office in charge of reviewing his product. Gone. That sent a pretty clear message through the agency: get on board with Elon, or you're out. It feels like par for the course for Elon, but it is really unprecedented in this country. Especially damaging is the fact that this also occurs at a time when they are just massively laying off people at the FDA. Huge cuts in the folks that make sure our medicine and food are safe. Not only does that mean life-saving medicine doesn't get reviewed and deployed faster to the American people, it means that dangerous stuff gets into circulation much longer before it can be stopped. Or maybe if it just gets to slip through with a wink and a nod and a big enough contribution to the Trump meme coin. And if you thought Elon stopped at the FDA, well, I have some more news for you. Doge has pulled the exact same move at other agencies, providing oversight over him or with which he has contracts. The FAA, where Elon Musk has desires for contracts for his Starlink satellite system. The Consumer Finance Protection Bureau, where Elon's companies face a significant threat of oversight, or at least they did before he made that agency largely go away. Or NASA, where Elon's SpaceX has billions in contracts. The Pentagon, more contracts for Elon. And now FDA. You can't find more corrupt self-dealing than that. Not in our history. You may be able to find it in other countries, but until this administration, you couldn't find it here. Now, in the category of good news, I guess if you're really wealthy, there's some good news for you at the IRS. And that is Donald Trump and his buddy Elon are gutting the IRS, tearing apart the agency that ensures that rich folks pay their fair share in taxes so they can't and don't scam the system. Well, by firing thousands of IRS employees, thousands of tax collections of rich folks will never occur, and billions of dollars that could be used to help our communities will never materialize. They're gutting it so that they can say it doesn't work, and then they can gut it even further, all to reward their billionaire friends. But it's worse than that. Much like the DOJ, it seems clear the Trump team has every intent of weaponizing the IRS to go after their enemies. They can order audits against people who speak out, protect those from audits who toe the line. Those attacks won't be just on big business, but also prominent political enemies. They could come for anyone who dares to speak out. A small business that sells a product they don't like, a nonprofit that supports a cause they don't like, they get an audit. But the president's wealthy buddies, no, they do really well. But this gutting of the IRS, this tax giveaway to people by gutting the IRS, this isn't the biggest con. This isn't the biggest con, not by a long shot. Because the biggest con involves trillions of dollars. And that, of course, is the tax cut. How they pay for it and how they don't. Donald Trump, who solicited untold sums from billionaires in the form of campaign contributions and shady schemes to enrich himself, delivers in a way that those donors could hardly imagine. Massive tax cuts for the wealthiest among us, paid for by cutting Medicaid and other vital services, and by borrowing a ton of money from your kids and grandkids, sinking the nation further into debt. Tax cuts for billionaires and more. Well, if you're one of them, that's great news. That means time to buy another yacht, or maybe another vacation home, more money to invest in the stock market, and they may need to, given what the Trump tariffs are doing in the market right now. But that's what their contributions bought them, a few billion here and a few billion there. And pretty soon we're talking about serious money for these wealthy donors and large corporations. But the thing is, these tax cuts aren't free. Yeah, they're using this phony math they call the current policy baseline. It's a phony math that says if you spent $3,000 on a vacation last year, you can spend another $3,000 this year and it won't cost anything because it's the current baseline in your family. But the reality is these tax cuts aren't free. Somebody's going to pay for them. Well, it won't be the real wealthy that pay for them. Everyone else is going to pay for them. Working Americans are going to see their costs skyrocket. They're going to see their retirement accounts plummet and their Social Security and Medicaid ripped apart to give more money to billionaires.
Can someone comment and tell me why they want to give more money to billionaires? Like, what is the legit reason why they would want to do that? If they're billionaires already, what is the real reason? Is it just pure greed? Do they think money will make them? I mean, it could, but it's just stupid. Let's get into some more positive things. Like,
You didn't start a business just to keep the lights on. Lucky for you, Shopify built in just one tapping.
So I see Lemmy Plummer, or Lemon Pepper as y'all call him, is up on X spewing lies. But let me tell you something. Never trust tweets, only trust receipts. I'm about to break down for you the entire situation when it comes to Zeus ownership. I get a call from a good friend of mine, Lamorne Morris. Congrats on your Emmy, by the way, my brother. Lamorne tells me that he has a colleague named Lemmy Plummer who wants to meet with me about starting a social network. His pitch was he wanted to start a black Netflix for influencers and call it the Social Network, which was already a Facebook movie, by the way. He offered me a good amount of equity in the company and said he was going to look out for Lamorne for connecting us. He never looked out for Lamorne. Now, at the time, I had the biggest series on the internet called the Cart Series.
Wait, baby, don't do that, no.
Had over 500 million views. It was nominated for an Emmy, 4 Streamies, winning 2. Then Lemmy asked me, are there any other influencers I could bring on as partners because we needed some heavy hitters in social media for this thing to work. I said, how?
I'm not gonna blame y'all, but any nigga named Lemmy is a scammer, a rapist, a bitch, and a hoe ass nigga. So I'm not blaming the people that he screwed over. I'm just saying, Mule is in his name. You know what mules are? Carriers of fucking stupid, ignorant shit and diseases. They spit. Mule, bro, come on.
How about I reach out to another longtime friend of mine, King Batch? He had the numbers. Lemmy agreed. Batch agreed to join. Lemmy said we need one more partner, some diversity. So Batch reached out to Jake Paul. But Jake was working on another project and said, I'll at least give y'all an episode on round 1.
Welcome to the Taj Mahal.
Then Batch said, what about another good friend of ours, Amanda Cerny? She was getting millions of views, making millions of dollars off of brand deals. We all agreed. Now, at this point, I broke down my equity so myself, Batch, and Amanda could have even equity across the board, and we all became co-founders.
I met with Daystorm, King Batch, and Amanda Cerny, who were pretty big influencers.
Yes.
And we ended up, I brought them on board.
Lemmy was supposed to be behind the scenes as the CEO, and the 3 of us were to be the face of the network, myself as the president. In the coming weeks, we started a group chat, and the founders came up with a new name for the social network. Some of the names was trash. Then one day I thought, wait, Nike was a Greek god. They were successful with their shoe and apparel line. Why don't we name ourselves after a Greek god? Let's be Zeus. So then Amanda's like, I had a dog named Zeus. Shoot, I like it.
Daystorm actually came up with the name Zeus. We were strategizing and talking about different names.
So then became the Zeus Network. In our operating agreement, Lemmy's job was to put up the money for the first round of content, which he'd get back soon as we launched. Myself, Batch, and Amanda's job was to use our audience and our face and our likeness to blow up the company and give it a legitimate name. Lemmy's like, look guys, I'm a nobody, and you guys have the influence and celebrity to make this work. So that summer, we went hard as hell.
Zeus just came out today. You on this nigga, you gonna die. At what point did you hear me say Zeus, man?
When you looked at me and said Zeus?
My job was also to go out and find.
He didn't get that right. He didn't get that right at all. I see what now.
Find as many creators as possible so that we can have enough content to live on the platform when it launched. To drive the necessary traffic to the platform, the flagship shows would be Batch, Amanda, and I also agreed to put season 2 of Cart onto Zeus. Shit, I even called in a favor from Uncle Snoop to pop up in the series, and he looked out for me.
Let's tear us apart.
Strike 1. You've been watching too much Zeus, nephew.
And then we spoke to 25 other creators who are also friends of ours and told them we'll give them a free series on Zeus if they promote the app. Let me promise all of them that they would get a percentage of the subscriptions. They didn't get a dime. So approaching the launch of Zeus, Lemmy calls me up crying, talking about the whole network about to go under because I ran out of money. I physically went into the office that entire summer and edited 4 series for Zeus. Then I put up $135,000 of my own money, paying for Bad Escorts, Caught Season 2, and 4 other creative series. Now, bear in mind, contractually, we weren't supposed to put up any money. But Lemmy said, I'm going to pay you back as soon as Zeus launches and we're profitable. Now, every show on Zeus has music in the background, but keep in mind, we had no more budget for music. So I called in another favor from my good friend Tommy Brown and Franks, and I said, yo, we need beats for Zeus. They done produced everything from Ariana Grande to Justin Bieber. Tommy gave us over 1,000 beats with a promise from Lemmy that they'd get paid back once Zeus was profitable. They never got paid. We understood that Zeus couldn't just be successful in social media, and we needed a partner in traditional media. So I talked to my boy Fonz, and he links me with Tiffany, who works at SAG-AFTRA. Zeus ended up signing a historic deal as the first social platform to partner with SAG-AFTRA. And because of this partnership, I was also able to get a lot of the creators and actors their SAG card because they had shows and series on Zeus. And let me end up stabbing SAG-AFTRA in the back, by the way. This is why I say don't trust tweets, only trust receipts. Let's keep it going. Now, since Zeus was a new platform and app, there was a lot of bugs that needed fixing. Now, our original tech partner, Nick, warned Lemmy that there was going to be some bugs and problems on launch day. But Lemmy ain't listen for shit. With his Napoleon complex, him and Nick used to get into it. So we throw this big-ass launch party in LA. We had ice sculptures, DJs, red carpet, big screens. Amanda bit the bullet and did this big-ass deal with Diageo for half her rate so we could have Ciroc as a sponsor. We was in it.
It came together. We're doing our pre-launch party, so coming out July 13th. I'm super stoked.
You know, Lemmy a troll nigga because he backstabbed the white woman. The troll. He don't give a fuck. Might be a rapist for sure.
On launch day, all the creators who had a show on the platform promoted the hell out of Zeus, and over 45,000 people joined the platform that day. So now we on Easy Street. Until the next day, we get a call from our tech partner, Nick, who said there was a glitch in the system and everybody got into Zeus for free. We had to boot everybody out of Zeus and ask them to rejoin for the subscription price. And if you know anything about people, they ain't paying for shit after they got it for free. So the first round of Zeus was a wash. We had to scramble and come up with a plan for round 2 with no money. Then King Batch comes in clutch and saves the day and brings in our 5th partner, a silent investor named Ben Koo, who put up the funds we needed for round 2. On round 2, we changed up the plan and we used the funds from Ben Koo to make longer form content. Amanda secured Lil Tay, who was huge at the time. Bat secured B. Simone, who was huge at the time. I secured Quay, who was huge at the time. And Lemmy secured Michael Blackson. Those shows with TT being the flagship gave us enough subscribers and enough income to make it to the next season for even bigger shows. Now, Lemmy controlled all the money at Zeus. And at this point, myself, Batch, and Amanda were pushed out while Lemmy's taking these interviews acting like he did it all by himself.
But you did have partners. She did have partners. What happened to them niggas?
You tell me.
Man, I'll Google this shit. Stop it, man. No, I remember seeing them.
You tell me.
So you bought them out, right?
You tell me what happened to these guys.
No, King Bach. Yeah. So King Bach, Amanda Cerny. That's what I was like. That's when they were lit.
Yeah, like I said, I created Zeus. I ended up investing my own capital. They didn't put in any money. They didn't do anything.
He seized all the Zeus accounts, got himself all this heavy security, and started spewing lies.
I thought they would bring some value, bring some money to the table, and do their thing, and they did.
Let me tell you something. Anybody who needs that kind of security is either super famous or did a lot of people dirty.
Oh! See, this is how you do it, bro. This is how you open packs. So how Box works is you could open it
Part of what makes this whole platform special is, yes, you guys are partners and owners with me in this. And what you bring to the table, like you said, is relationships. People would not do this if it wasn't because of you and King Batch and Amanda.
Now, when you have a successful company like Zeus, you do something called partner payouts. Lemmy pays himself, but never pays his partners. To be totally transparent, we had a falling out because a good friend of ours, who is now a successful Latin artist and used to be Lemmy's assistant, told us that he sexually assaulted her. Till this day, myself, Batch, and Amanda, we received K-1 tax documents stating that we make millions of dollars from the Zeus network as partners. So we're paying taxes on money that we never received. So while Lemmy Plumber walks through Paris with 5 security guards and designer clothes and purchases, let me just read this, new home, RVs.
Lemmy done bought me a truck for my birthday.
The Zeus network bought you.
Zeus bought it.
Cybertrucks, cars, jewelry, and he's giving out bags to everybody who walks through Zeus's door. The partners who initially kept the lights on and made Zeus what it is today received nothing. Don't let the internet and lemon pepper fool you. We put them on. This guy's a fraud. I had a call a few years back with Lemmy and a Jason Tobert, who's also works there and is too cowardly to say something because he was on the phone call. And Lemmy is like, you guys are fucking losers. I'm going to drag this case until you all broke. Zeus is worth $1 billion. You can't beat the machine. You'll never beat Zeus. And he's been dragging it. We spent over $1 million on lawyers already. Oh, they're not even part of the company. We have to sit up there and prove that he's on some bullshit. So we'll spend 3 months and a couple $100,000 just to prove that he's telling another fucking lie. We've been literally fighting this dude in court for 2 years, y'all. I found out that Zeus has multiple lawsuits that Lemmy done settled behind our backs. And when you hear all these women on TikTok or you hear Ray J going off and shit.
To all the women that's going through this with Lemmy and going through this with Zeus, like, we hear you and we're gonna help you.
We're gonna stay in this room for 3 to 4 hours until you do what I tell you to do.
I don't f with that nigga.
Why not?
Wait. You worked with him before? He's like the Black Harvey Weinstein.
So while Lemmy flies on his private jets and throws out money to crowds off of a career full of lies, keep in mind that if he can do this to his partners, imagine what he would do to someone who is not. Anyway, y'all, this has been my TED Talk. I just wanted to explain to y'all the ownership of the Zeus Network, and you're looking at the fucking president.
Get ready. Y'all get ready.
Yes, you get ready.
I ain't gonna lie, I would have had him touched in so many ways. I'm talking about Lemoon, like I would have had Lemoon touched. Bad. Let's see what Aaron the plumber said.
What I do? Bitch, come on here, say.
Felony kidnapping. Yeah, because I told y'all I want to that. When I said I ain't doing this, bro, and I got up and I walked off, yeah, they ain't gonna show y'all that, show y'all what they edited out because they committed a felony, felony kidnapping. Yeah, because I told y'all I wanted to leave after I fought Bria. I'm ready to go. Why are you guys hindering me from leaving? This is kidnapping in a real way. I'm not stupid. You know what I'm saying? I want to go home. They didn't let me leave. I tried to walk out several times. I was held back, suppressed from security. That's kidnapping in a real way, man. You know what I'm saying?
Like my life is in jeopardy. 2 people that were on Zeus Network are now deceased. Raina Dunlap was on her way to a Baddies audition and was found deceased inside of a abandoned building. Jay Hefner, 1 month after filming with Zeus Network, was mysteriously deceased as well. Why is Zeus Network not saying anything about Raina Dunlap or Jay Hefner? I'm not about to be the third person, so I'm going to speak out on this. Somebody's definitely been following me. Mysterious stuff has been happening. Somebody mysteriously drove their car through my living room.
Oh my God.
Okay? Y'all see they created the distraction. They trying to start a beef between me and Kevin Gates. Like my life is in jeopardy. 2 people.
So as you see, there's a lot of strange stuff that's going on with Zeus Network and Aaron the plumber.
All right, what's poppin', everybody? It's your boy Armani. We're back with another video. Get in here, get in here. It's time to get into some things, okay?
I like this nigga. He funny as hell.
So it's a lot of drama going on in the Zeus Network land, all right? Natalie Nunn seems to be throwing in the towel, okay? We seen her crashing out on Lemmy, okay? They were going in on each other. She was calling him all kind of B words and all kind of baddies and all of these things. He was basically saying, call your boyfriend, call Louis, call this one, call that one, exposing her for, allegedly cheating on her husband. It's just a lot going on, okay? I wanted you to take a look at what happened. Let's get into it. You know, we cutting straight to the chase on this one. Straight to the chase. So you guys can know what I'm talking about when we get there. Let's go.
What you were saying? It's your Jew. Do too much. You lied. Tell the world that. Tell him. Call your boyfriend.
Call your boyfriend. Call Louis. Very messy.
Don't touch me. Don't touch me.
We can tell allegedly a few things about Lemieux. He's an aggressive, closeted gay man for sure. He hates women, beats women, allegedly. And I know there's some gay people that, or gay men, I shouldn't say gay people, gay men that have sucked that cock before. Because he's too aggressive with women. But he's just a weirdo. I hate weird ass niggas. And he looks like the nigga that's just a pure weirdo. And the niggas celebrate him. Y'all, American culture is, see.
Don't touch me. Hey, where's on? Look at him. Oh, here he goes.
Call them all.
Here he goes. Yes, look at here he goes. Look at this guy. Ah. Why you touching me? What did I say? What I say? That's the weirdo right there. Wait until I tell the truth. Wait until I tell the truth about this nigga right here. Y'all ready? Y'all ready? Ah. You holding me hostage. I said let the driver go. Hostage. Hey, I asked you to get in the car and let him go. He just told everybody to get out. Look at him. Look at him. Look at it.
I'm not a baddie. I don't care. You don't scare
You
me.
are a baddie. With a phone. The car's not moving because you're the boss. Nigga, you're not the boss of me. You're not. So let me go. So let me go. Shut the f***. I'm not those. I'll talk to you however the f*** I want. I ain't never f*** you and I'm not you. So shut the f*** up talking to me like I'm one of your kids. I don't give a f*** I'm on live. And what are you going to do, L'Oreal? I've been nothing but respectful to you, too. The plumbers have lost their minds.
The plumbers have lost their minds.
Period. No, it is, because I asked you guys nicely to leave me the f*** alone. You guys keep doing shit and hiding behind me. I am live. Look at the plumbers whispering, doing weird shit. They always do. I don't care. I asked you guys to put my security in the car and let me go. Oh, come on. Hurry up, guys. I said let me the f*** go. Y'all thought I was playing with you, but I told you I wasn't. Let's go. It's a wrap. You want to see whose show it is? Or is it Lemmy Plummer's show? It's a wrap. And I said what the f*** I said. And I'm not done talking. I'm not f***ing done. Ashley, I'm not f***ing done.
Wow. Explosive. Wow. There's another part of this I wanted you guys to hear too, because it just adds to the story a little more context.
No, you guys don't. You guys throw rocks and hide hands. I never said put Biggie on a timeout. I never set up Ivory. I never did none of that. Y'all keep playing with me, hiding behind motherfuckers that really are the motherfuckers, and then you guys want to act like, oh no, Natalie. I asked you no. I told the car to just go. You guys, I'm still sitting here. I don't give a I'm on live. And what are you going to do, L'Oreal? I've been nothing but respectful to you, too. The plumbers.
Okay, I wanted you guys to hear that beginning piece because a lot of people, thought that Natalie set up the Stunner Girl Ivory jumping, and I think what we're seeing here is a lot of frustration on Natalie's behalf. Number one, I think Natalie is tired of being the fall guy because she's the face of the network. I think Natalie is over the fact everybody, when something happens, everybody hates Natalie because Natalie, when you think baddies, you think Natalie. So it's like, Natalie must have did this. Natalie must have edited like this. Natalie must have said this. And Natalie's like, stop, it ain't me. But every time a person from the cast or auditions or anything affiliated with baddies, if something doesn't go right, if something goes left, or if they've been set up by somebody in production or on the team, Natalie gets to take the fall for that. And she's like, shit, I don't have all these enemies. I'm here to make money, do my thing, and be the baddest baddie too. But I'm tired of everybody hating me, and I'm tired of taking the fall for all this stuff that you guys got going on behind the scenes, trying to produce a show or trying to get back at people or feeding your egos. And then on top of that, I'm not going to continue taking these blows when I don't feel respected. I told you I don't like Anna. I told you I don't like DTB. You let Anna fight me. That's what I'm hearing. I heard Anna fought her. They're saying that Anna won. I don't know. DTB, you know I don't want her on the show. You bring her back. You keep bringing Tommy back. You know, that was weird. Like, so you keep putting it in my face like this ain't my show. You know what I mean? And I feel, you know, people say that, you know, the show is not Natalie's actual show. She doesn't own the Baddies IP. I don't know. But it feels like Lemmy's always like, ho, this ain't your show. B, this ain't your shit. You know what I mean? You can get the fuck ASAP. That's what that feels like to me. You know what I mean? It's given, you know what? This ain't what you thought, Natalie. And Natalie's like, all right, well, it is my show because I'm the face of the show. And I can guarantee you that if I...
Sounds a bit weird.
During COVID, teaching myself how to sew, practicing off of YouTube. I went to YouTube University, got 2 sewing machines and some rulers.
Damn. Yeah. Oh, this been so bad, boy. She's so bad, bro. She's so bad, bro. She's so bad, bro. Whew, you want to bark at the screen. She's so bad, bro. And she be wearing white, so you know she don't never have a shit stack. She's so bad, bro.
And laid the fabric out on the floor and was marking places in the floor and like everything.
Another watch this because it's getting annoying. I don't know. None of this is real. I don't know. Well, everybody, he's not unraveling. He don't give a fuck. This shit's still funny as hell. He really came out in a black KKK outfit. What the hell?
I'm not going to lie. I like some of Trump's policies, and that's the reason why I voted for him. But did I know it was going to threaten America? The America that I keep safe every day?
America's airport security has been thrown into chaos.
The Trump administration is ending collective bargaining for more than 50,000 TSA workers across the country.
According to TSA officers, the consequences could be deadly.
With this current administration, I was expecting it to bring order. You know? To me, it's brought chaos.
In March, without warning.
Well, fuck you, Billy Bob Thornton. Puss asshole. That's what you get. Fuck collective bargaining. Fuck all this shit. Unions, fuck you. Y'all decided to vote for somebody that was always anti-union. That's what you get. Use a hoe. Use a hoe. What? Use a hoe. Who? Use a hoe. On 3, use a hoe. I don't hear that soppy, sad story shit. Fuck you. Trump administration declares TSA straight-on union contract void. Plus L. But that's all I got for y'all. Sorry about that. I just got pissed off. Got pissed off all over again. It is what it is. Like I always say, you are what you're not, and you are what you is. If you ain't a bitch, you ain't a bitch. But if you is a bitch, you's a bitch. But thank y'all for liking, commenting, subscribing. Please, I'm telling you, I'm giving one of these away. I hit the 3K subscribers. I'm giving one of these away to a subscriber. Comment, share, subscribe. We don't get this dub. We don't get this dub. Comment, share, subscribe. We don't get this dub. You feel me? Thank y'all for tuning in with me. Thank you for watching. Thank you for liking. Thank you for commenting. Whether it's good or bad, should be good, because if you like democracy,